It's estimated that 100 people per hour die from loneliness-related issues, meaning 871,000 people per year. Now, this is insane. And you would think, what? Loneliness? Isn't that just like, feeling like you're kind of by yourself? But that's not entirely true, because loneliness is actually the lack of one's desired level of social connection. Everyone's experience of loneliness is different. Some people prefer to be around people all the time. Some people prefer to be by themselves a lot of the time. If you don't feel like the people around you know what's truly going on inside you, you're pretty likely to feel lonely. Now, loneliness affects both physical and mental health. This ranges from depression and anxiety on the mental health side. On physical health, you have cognitive decline, cardiovascular issues, increased risk of heart disease, and an increased mortality risk comparable to smoking 15 cigarettes per day. And that doesn't mean somebody is just like, I'm lonely, and they die. It means that related to loneliness, all of these effects that I previously mentioned are causing significant deaths around the world. Throughout the lifespan, loneliness is the highest when you are young, decreases through the middle of your life, and then increases again as you get older, with 80% of youth and 40% of adults over 60 experiencing loneliness at least sometimes. The world we live in has increasingly individualistic societies. It's every person for themselves. Of course, with the rise of social media and other technology, we've been given this really compelling illusion of connection. Like, oh, I have 200 friends online or 1,000 friends online. And this doesn't really fulfill that actual authentic desire for connection with other human beings. There's a study called the BBC Loneliness Experiment, which surveyed 55,000 people from around the world. It lists 237 countries and territories. And an analysis of this study found that loneliness increases with individualism, decreases with age, and is higher in men than women, suggesting that young men might be most particularly vulnerable to loneliness. Modern-day masculine norms are also exacerbating loneliness. They encourage independence and individualism, they discourage being emotionally vulnerable, and this usually results in very surface-level friendships, which in turn do not fulfill the need for connection. I want to make it clear that everybody can experience loneliness. I only chose to focus my research on men because it is the group that I best understand because I am one. Beyond the logical reasons of why loneliness is an issue and men's groups might be a solution, there's also my personal story. I remember being a lonely kid in high school. I remember being a guy who was very disconnected, who didn't know how to open up to his friends, and it wasn't until I went to a men's group for the first time where I saw that men of all ages are comfortable and capable of opening up and being vulnerable, that there is a strong desire for that. Anybody that was coming to those meetings were opening up potentially for the first time ever. And this was something that I saw time and time and time again. I back this up with my whole heart because I've seen it time and time again. I've seen the transformation too. I've seen other people who came in totally depressed. They got to feel seen for the first time. They got to share things for the first time that they had never said before in their life. That's why I chose to do this research. That is ultimately the reason why I care about this, is because it is something that helped me, it is something that has helped my community, and I think that men's groups are something that can help the world. The purpose of my research was to see whether men's groups actually offered a sustainable solution to loneliness. The research question that guided my study was, what impact does long-term participation in emotionally open men's groups have on the experience of loneliness? To answer my research question, I conducted a case study in Bali, Indonesia. I chose the location because it was a space that generally attracts people from all around the world, so within my study, there's actually over 10 countries represented. I did 15 semi-structured interviews with men who have been long-term participants of men's groups. It ended up that the men that I interviewed had been a part of men's groups for anywhere from 1 to more than 30 years. The research was guided by two frameworks. These are self-determination theory and social identity theory. Self-determination theory being meeting the psychological needs of autonomy, competence, and relatedness, and social identity theory, having a social identity, a belonging to a group, creates a buffer against loneliness. So the big question is, what did I find? Well, there was 5 main themes that I found throughout the coding process and throughout my research. My first finding is that structural safety enables vulnerability and connection. The structure of a men's group plays a critical role in creating safety, which therefore leads to the ability to be emotionally vulnerable, and emotional vulnerability, as I will talk about later, leads to connection. Through the experience of sitting in a circle of men and watching someone, witnessing somebody share something that is, particularly vulnerable, it encourages you to do the same. What was made clear throughout the different interviews was that the agreement of confidentiality is vital in order to have anybody be emotionally vulnerable. Without this foundation of confidentiality and having a skilled person to facilitate a group, you just can't have vulnerability. Nobody's going to open up if they think that the next person is going to just share what they said to the world. And then the consistency of the group, having it be a structure that you can reliably count on, that you go and it's the same experience every time, and that it feels safe and comfortable. The second finding from my research is that a male-specific space facilitates masculine vulnerability. And what I mean by this is that being vulnerable as a man in many spaces is hard. A men's group particularly gives men the permission to open up and be vulnerable in a way that feels generally safer than it might be in other places. I do want to make it clear that not everybody shared this sentiment. Some people said they were indifferent to who was in a space to be able to share. A men's group both holds the masculine and the feminine equally. What might be seen as generally more feminine being vulnerable is a part of the space. It gives you the permission to embody both the masculine and the feminine in a space that feels comfortable to do so. The core mechanism of a men's group is both sharing and listening. And this seemed to be something that was reflected throughout all of the interviews, the significant impacts of this. There was a similar sentiment shared amongst many of the interviews, which is that a lot of people just had the impression that they were going through things on their own and that nobody else could understand. And that going to a men's group and being able to share, being able to see other people share similar issues, made them realize that that was simply not true, that they weren't alone in these issues, and that there were other people that were going through the same thing or had gone through the same thing and could support them on that journey. So through this process of sharing and witnessing, being able to support others and be supported by others, it just transforms isolation into connection, into feeling like you have a support group because you do. The fourth finding of my research is that sustained participation in men's groups builds internalized belonging that persists in solitude. This long-term participation within a men's group shifts from someone's identity being individual to collective. The really cool thing about this is that this internalized belonging, this sense of connection with others, persists when you're alone, because you know that the group is there to support you, you believe it, you feel it, and that is something that was reflected consistently through all of the interviews. My final finding is that participation in men's groups develops relational competence and transforms the experience of solitude. And what I mean by relational competence is the ability to connect with others. And so this means the improving quality of pre-existing relationships and just good quality of future relationships. So that can be with your family, with your friends, with a romantic partner, and beyond. Many men said that throughout their experience of men's groups, they experienced the complete elimination of loneliness, whether that was immediately or over time. As one man put it, "I ceased to be alone and have not felt alone again." There was also often a change in what somebody perceives as loneliness, and seeing it not as in disconnection to others, but as in a disconnection to yourself. And so, again, a men's group isn't functioning to just cut out all of your issues, but it gives you the resources to be able to connect, to build relationships, to connect with yourself, to be able to do all these things that you wouldn't have necessarily done, to be emotionally vulnerable, to share with others, to learn from others. So think of it like this. You have the structure of the group as a foundation, the facilitation and the agreements that create that emotional safety. Additionally, you have the masculine or male-specific space that allows for further emotional vulnerability. You then, on top of that, have this sharing and support that is mutual, that you are sharing to others, others are sharing, you are listening, you are receiving. On top of that, you have this internalized belonging that comes through the participation. You shift from having a identity as I to we, being connected to others, to believing that there's a group of people that love and care about you, I guess. You now have all of the resources you need to work on your problems, both together with others and individually. You have the resources to support yourself now. I'll leave you with one last quote from an interviewee. "My baseline has been fundamentally altered in terms of what I now perceive as a meaningful relationship. The dynamics I share with people inside the men's group are in many ways what I'm aiming for in my everyday life." And I think this beautifully illustrates exactly what I've experienced, that the standard that I have for connection and in new friendships is so much higher than it used to be, and so much better, so much more healthy, I would say. to not have any mask on when I meet somebody. I don't have to pretend to be anyone I'm not. My findings clearly show that men's groups have the potential to be a solution to loneliness. However, the structure of men's groups is something that is so variable. Not all men's groups are created equal. So in order to figure out what actually creates a good men's group, I had a call with Dr. Wayne Byrd. He is the founder of Brotherhood Global and the author of The Brotherhood Effect, and he has incredible experience with this topic. Thank you so much, Wayne, for joining me here on this call. I'm really excited to talk to you today about men's groups and their importance.
As you were saying earlier, that men's groups are critically important. I believe that. My life is evidence of that. I'm alive partly because of the men's groups that I've been in throughout my life. I'm the person I've become at nearly the age of 50 because of some of the ways I've been held in men's groups. And I help men all over the world launch and lead men's groups built around a very specific structure that I developed over time. And this structure has allowed men that are uninitiated in being authentic and transparent and open with each other. It's a structure that helps men do this very easily. So I'm committed now to spreading the good news of brotherhood, as my particular structure in men's group movement is called, brotherhood. I'm committed to spreading brotherhood throughout the world. I want every man to understand that his life can be improved by becoming someone who sees themselves as a brother, as an essential part of their identity, being a brother, being someone that supports others and someone who can be supported by others. I believe intrinsically that life is better with brothers, choosing to be brothers and owning that as an essential and necessary part of their identity forever. That's the mission I'm on right now.
Could you describe what a men's group is?
It's an intentional family of choice. That's what a men's group is, an intentional family of choice. And because it's intentional, every men's group has the opportunity to be completely autonomous in how it creates its ways of being.
What is brotherhood?
Well, brotherhood, as I've most recently imagined it, it's a structure that brings men together in a way that is accessible to men who have not done a lot of this kind of work before. It doesn't feel like, quote, weird. It feels very simplistic. And I think because it feels that way, men are able to just dive into it and immediately begin to just act in a way that is useful. I built a system that's built, as you know, built around two questions. The first one is, how are you really doing? And we really stress that really. How are you really doing, man? And then we all get quiet and we listen without any interruption. We'll stare. We'll just, and eventually it's like, here's how I'm really doing. And they'll finally get the shit off, So that's the first question. Once it's fully expressed, our next question, again, equally important, how can we support you? And then we get quiet again and they can't escape it again. What do you need, man? And the depth of their answer of that question then determines the depth of how they are supported, which then two things have happened. Number one, they've off-gassed the stress of whatever's going on inside of them. And they've really had to think about it and give it language. It doesn't just live in their head. And they can see across the room, people going like, they can see it's being understood. Secondarily, someone's asked, what can we do for you? And if they really do ask for some support, they get support. So the thing that was once festering and turning into a feeling that life is just hard and unsurvivable and there's nothing I can do becomes something that just... It's shared. It's now the problem is diffuse. It's not just here. It's kind of out there and you realize other people are having this experience as well. And now I've gotten some support in it. Maybe the problem's not as big as it used to be. Maybe I've gotten, if they ask for a new perspective, maybe they've got new perspectives on their problems and maybe another way to address it. And the problem seems smaller now, whatever it is. We've sincerely had an impact on making that person feel as though life can be handled. And most importantly, one is not alone. Because I think loneliness is part of what you've been studying. And that is one of the major problems with male psychology is this idea that they're alone. Listen, men have reported to me on the side that they were suicidal, for example, and have told me that being in the group caused them to make different decisions about their lives. One person told me they had already written their note that they were going to leave behind. They'd written to certain family members. It's already done. And then brotherhood came into their world and they chose not to do it. Like you think about that for a second, the ripples of that decision. Unbelievable. I think it's one of the benefits of brotherhood is that it prevents a person from getting to the edge where they get to decide whether or not to jump. That's what brotherhood is. And it's couched in a structure that's so simplistic that it can be translated into almost any environment. I believe brotherhood can be in every country in the world, every environment. So in brotherhood, we believe that all relationships are improved by a few things. It's really 4 pillars. We kind of talk about 3 of them because one is just so inherent, but we talk about proximity, consistency, and intimacy. Focus on the men around us. Proximity, number 1. That makes our collection of men close enough to each other to actually be physically there for each other when needed, and to make it easy as possible for us to get together in a consistent fashion, which is our next word. Proximity, consistency. All relationships are improved and built on the amount of time spent together. If you're together very consistently, you'll have a lot of opportunity to deepen relationships. So consistency is one of our key elements. Proximity, consistency, and then shorthand for all the transparency and authenticity is just intimacy. Deep relationships required a level of honesty, a level of open-heartedness that would require a sense of safety. So intimacy is that as well. And then lastly, I say we have 4 because mutual support is our other pillar, really. We support each other. You don't come there to just be supported. You join the family so that you can get everything you need, and you can make sure everyone gets everything they need as well. Consistency, proximity, intimacy, and mutual support form the foundation that brotherhood sits upon. First of all, get support. Sign up for some support from an organization like mine to understand what it is to create one, and then we will hold your hand as you do so. I think what is important is not how many people show up, but how well you create the norms around those 4 core values of proximity, consistency, intimacy, and mutual support. I think the structure takes care of so much of the heavy lifting. It doesn't require any person to be some sort of amazing facilitator. It doesn't require any of that. All you have to do is get all the guys into the same place at the same time. Number 2, be as willing to be as intimate as possible to model for other men that it's safe to do so. And number 3, be willing to be responsible for the consistency for the first few months. Owning being supportive early, owning the intimacy, owning the consistency. That's what is necessary for this to spread. Just own the values, and I think that we can help you with the rest.
Thank you so much, seriously, for being so open to continue to share and connect on the importance of having these spaces for men.
Hey man, it's my pleasure, and thank you for doing what you're doing. You and I share an intention to be men who forward this beautiful thing that solves so many of our problems. I know that people's lives will be dramatically impacted by what you're doing in ways that you'll never know.
Thank you so much, Wayne, for giving this valuable insight into what makes an effective men's group. So I'd like to talk a little bit about what my findings actually mean. Clearly, men's groups are a valid and effective solution or approach to reducing loneliness in men. They help men become better able to handle solitude. They improve relationships, increase emotional capacity, and increase each man's capability outside the group. Consistent participation in men's groups gives men a reliable space where they feel understood and seen, which directly lowers feelings of isolation and increases a sense of belonging. The significance of this research is pretty straightforward. When a men's group is intentionally designed and effectively facilitated, men's groups offer a scalable community-based solution for reducing loneliness in men. This study shows me that men's willingness to connect is far greater than many people assume. With intentional environments and consistent participation, men can support each other and create meaningful change in their lives. Overall, I would say that this research makes me very inclined to believe that men's groups are going to play a vital role in reducing loneliness in men around the world. And I really think that this is the start of something big. Hopefully, throughout this video, you've learned that there are some serious resources, some serious places that you can go to receive support, to receive connection. All of this is at your fingertips, and you can create this yourself. You can create a men's group, you can join a men's group, you can join any type of group. You can create this connection with your friends, with your family. All it takes is asking the simple question, how are you really doing? And then sitting back and listening. This video was basically the culmination of 2 years of research throughout my degree at LIU Global, and I've put countless hours into researching my issue of loneliness, the solutions that are out there, figuring out where I want to go, how I want to do this research, and then funneling that into actually doing research in another country as an undergraduate, which that alone is crazy, then turning that research that I gathered, all of those 15 interviews from people from around the world, into a written exegesis, which is the written portion of this project, and then this is my documentary thesis. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you learned something, and until next time.